You're listening to Puma Podcast.
Hi, I'm Tatiana Maligro Puma Podcast, and you're listening to Teka Teka. With the holiday rush in full swing, many Filipinos have already crossed off their gift lists, heading to their go-to spots for the perfect present. One of those is Papemelroti, a family-owned shop offering sustainably crafted gifts for every occasion. In this episode, we take a look back at the story behind this iconic store and how it continues to provide sustainable crafts for Manileños to share with their loved ones. Have a listen.
Papemelroti, as you probably know by now, stands for siblings Patsy, Peggy, Meldy, Robert, and Tina Alejandro. Magkakapatid, all artistic, and how that happened we will get to later. But where this story really should begin is before there was Papemelroti, there was just Cor and Ben, or Corbin. That's Kurit and Benny Alejandro, and how they built the mom-and-pop shop that literally gave birth to what most Filipinos now nickname as Pape. Well, it all started more than 70 years ago in a line in Manila, and it was the wrong line. First off, it was a line a few years late. World War II had rudely interrupted Ben Alejandro's high school education by a few years, and by the time he was lining up to become an architecture major in Mapua, well, Benny changed his mind on a whim. He would finish high school and after the war go on to Mapua, earn his degree, and by 1950, he was finally ready for work. His first job was with a company that would later be known as Procter & Gamble. His job, buying copra. The job would take him wherever there were coconuts in the Philippines, and lucky for the ocean lover, often that would be places by beaches. Cebu, for example. One November, there he was in Cebu, sourcing copra, but also taking advantage of that November's All Souls Day holiday.
In All Saints Day, they come out, male, female, pasyal there in the cemetery. I saw her there. I said, I hope I see her again.
By her, Benny is referring to Socorro Alviola, a Cebuana lass 8 years his junior. Her friends, he learned, called her Kurit, and she was an architecture student.
Well, after maybe a few days, I saw her in the Tartanilla. Tartanilla is a calesa. You sit like a jeep, like that. I said, that's the girl I want to meet. And one of them said, taking up architecture, CIT.
What's CIT?
Cebu Institute of Technology. Do you know where she lives? Yeah, we go there now. We visited her. It turned out nice and very welcoming and a beautiful girl.
What was the first thing you told her?
Well, I said, my name is Benny.
No spoilers here to tell you that Benny and Kurit got married.
55, we got married. We travel around, season expense account. Go to Dipolo, go to Balangao. Patsy was born in Cebu. Peggy was born 2 years after. 58, they were growing up. In Mindanao, it's all mountains and all. I said, kawawa naman. The kids. I will get the transfer to Manila.
And so eventually, Benny left P&G. He joined another company, this time in the oil industry, which then allowed him to be based in Manila. They settled at UP Village in Quezon City, but soon enough, they had to move again. Benny needed a new place because for this new job that entailed a lot of networking, a lot of marketing and sales, for this job, now listen carefully here, he needed a telephone. Now, note, back then, you couldn't just apply to get a phone line.
Yeah, you couldn't just apply.
That's Patsy.
Patricia Paterno or Patsy Paterno. I'm the managing director of Corben Corporation, the pa of Papemelroti.
Patsy's senior citizen now.
But in 1967, Patsy was all of 11 years old, far from being a senior at anything, but a dutiful and old enough eldest daughter to remember not the beginnings of Papemelroti, but of Corben. If you wanted the quickest way to have a phone at home, you find a neighborhood that already had phone lines and you find a place there. That was Benny's requirement. Meanwhile, Kurit, the stay-at-home mom now raising 3 daughters, by this time she was itching to do something, but something ideally from home. And so she tells Benny he could find a neighborhood with a phone, but
Find me a place to stay with a store. That was what she said.
So in Morato, we found a place there with the mezzanine and really moved there.
It was actually a row of apartments. And we lived on the second floor, and there was a small store in the bottom. So that was the store that we started in.
how big was it?
Mga 30 square meters. And the display window was kind of big, wide. So that was the one that she would fill up.
And so they settle into their new apartment in Morato. The kids have their room upstairs. Benny has his phone line. Kurit has her little 30 square meter space for a shop. Now, what to sell? And equally important, how to start. You need cash for capital. Where does that come from?
And you know how she got capital? There was a lady who visited her. And this lady said, "You come with me, help me sell furniture." And that was a time when you would just go with a stranger without thinking twice, you know. And she went to Crispa Floro, and she showed the catalog, and she said, "Come on, you make a PO." And so he made a purchase order right then and there. I don't know how many. And then the lady brought her back home. And then a few weeks after, the lady came back and brought her 3 huge cabinets nicely carved. And that was what she sold to get capital. We were thinking, why didn't that lady come back? If she thought that mommy was a great saleswoman, why didn't she come back to ask her to help her again? But she never did. She doesn't even remember the name. So we said, maybe she's an angel. And then my dad started buying from abroad. Back then, it was easy to import their samples. So they're all different kinds. He would order, and then it would come.
Mail order lang. You just get the catalog, you order, and okay.
So I remember there were these Artimpex miniature animals. They were very, very nicely made, miniatures. And then he also had Fugger glass, which was from, I think, Austria. My mom would put them in the store window. And they would sell because they were really nice.
But that shop window, if I could go back in time and see that shop window, I can already basically see the same character, the same persona of Papemelroti of what it is now. It's the same sensibility, same...
Not really, because they were imported items. Like now, we don't sell glass, we don't sell...
Still, Kurit had the setup she wanted. She could watch over her growing family upstairs and her shop downstairs. But it was the mid-70s heading into the 80s. Martial law, a weakening peso, and the general uncertainty of life in the Philippines inevitably brought up the question of whether or not to even stay in the Philippines. The business itself was affected. It was becoming too expensive to just keep reselling stuff from abroad. Ultimately, they stayed, and they were forced to just completely focus on what they could finally just make at home. As the Alejandro family grew, they outgrew that apartment in Morato, and the business began to outgrow the little space of Corben. Benny and Kurit broke ground on a new house in Tandansora, and again the home, running on family, became the engine for their enterprise. And most crucial, the kids got involved. There is something about the story of Papemelroti that supposedly explains the provenance of the entire brood's creativity. Okay, so tell me if this is urban legend. I got it from many people. Hindi, kasi ang mga Alejandro kids daw, they grew up without any toys.
That is true. We had very, very few toys.
What they do is, you've seen this thick Montgomery Ward and Sis Roebuck with all those printed dresses.
Catalogs.
Catalog. They cut it, put it in cardboard, and they cut the dress, and what they make.
We make decoupage. That's the art of making the paper appear like it's part of the wood. We would distress it, which we would use a hammer, we would use a chain, we would nail on it and everything. And then Meldy is the most industrious in making that decoupage. It was so funny because we were all making, and then hers looked the most like it came from the garbage can. It was so black. It was the first to get sold. The one that we really loved is, with those old records, we would play that again and again. We memorized all the songs because we didn't have many records. And then we would have programs. And we would present for my mom and dad. So we had very, very few toys. But we would make.
You sound like the Von Trapps of handicrafts.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, by the late 70s, seeds were being planted for a revolution in the Philippines. A new concept in shopping experience. The very first mall was opened in Cubao.
Proudly present the Thriller in Manila.
We were there at the opening when Muhammad Ali came, cut the cake and everything. And then we opened in Ali Mall.
With the new place was also born the new name.
When they were growing up, Patsy, Peggy, Mel, this is unfair. You could written many, our names are not there. I said, no, it's crazy. Nobody can pronounce it. Nobody can remember it. It won't even stick. Well, that's why now people call it Pape.
The point was, we want our own also. And it was a joke, So, and that's by age. So, Patsy, Peggy, Meldy, Robertina, Papemelroti. It was a joke. But I don't know, they allowed us to put up Papelmeroti in 1976 in the second floor. And we were the ones selling. I was the cashier, always made mistakes. Peggy was the seller. She would sell things. Up to now, she likes to sell to people. And then Meldy, she made pillows. She was also sewing in her own sewing machine. And then Robert would paint.
And then Tina, what was she doing? Or was she too small?
Oh no, Tina was 7 years old. She was wrapping gifts at that time. And the thing is, she was too small to reach the counter. So she would wrap on the floor. And we actually know a lady who said that she remembers. There was a little girl wrapping on the floor. A few days after we opened, a lady came and said, I want to interview you for a women's magazine. She gave us 3 pages with pictures, and it was entitled All in the Family. So there were pictures of all of us. So people would come up and say, oh, I know this. Patsy, Peggy, Meldy, Robertina. So it was really good advertisement.
Today, Corbin is the company. Papemelroti is the flagship brand. And what all of it became is basically what the family was and continues to be. After Ali Mall, Papemelroti got a stall in the first mall of SM. And the rest, as I say, is history. I imagine you now develop this very good relationship with SM. You're a genuine draw to SM. People want to go Papemelroti. It used to be only Ali Mall. Now they're thinking, did SM come to you and say that, hey, we want you in our next mall. We want you in our next mall.
All the time. Not only SM, even Ayala now, and so many.
Do you have to say no?
Oh, many times.
In 1985, we opened in SM North. So we were one of the pioneers. We were celebrated after 25 years. They had a big party, celebrating Because do you know what? In Ali Mall, we're the only one left there from the original tenants. Don't you think that's an amazing thing?
I remember, because Big Daddy is no longer there.
Okay. The last one was Shakey's, I think. They left a couple of years ago. So we're the only ones left.
Kurit passed away in 2016. By then, there were 21 Papemelrotis.
From when I was young, I always knew that I would, help my mom. Meldy is different because she took up business. She wanted to work in Makati, wear high heels, nice clothes. And so she started applying in different businesses there. And when nobody got back to her, she said, maybe I'll just work here for a while, And one day, when she was in the store, she heard a lady talking to her daughter. She was holding up a figurine and she said, I gave this to your dad and it changed his life. And the figurine was something that Peggy made. And then it says on the bottom, work for the Lord, the pay isn't much, but the retirement plan is out of this world. It so happened that the father of the daughter was a workaholic, hardly comes home. And then after she gave that figurine, decided to prioritize his family. And so Meldy said, my gosh, that's only one figurine. We have so many figurines, we have so many posters, inspirational. So she decided to work in Papemelroti. That's when the calls came for interviews. And she said, no, I have work already.
Do you know you can talk to God and He'll answer? You don't even have to talk audibly. And I have proof of that. Because when my wife died, I sit there and cry all the time. And then I talk to my wife and say, miss you. She miss me also. She answers also. And I said, can you hear me? She said, yeah. So I said, if you can hear me, give me a sign now. When I said no, the bird came from there and flew straight to my face twice. And that night, I had a dream and my wife was saying, did you see my sign? I think God answers.
And that was today's episode of Teka Teka. Again, I'm Tatiana Maligro. The original episode was narrated by Robbie Alampay and was researched, written, and produced by Mikel Bolante, Trisha Aquino, Nico Bolante, Elsie Cancino, and Janina Magundayaw. This version was put together by Anthony Tobias and Jill Caro for Teka Teka. As someone who loves stationery and regularly buys notepads and notebooks from Papemelroti, I find it inspiring to hear the story behind local brands dedicated to sustainability. And if you know someone who shares a love for stationery or supporting local businesses, it would be great if you share this episode with them. Thanks for listening.